Welcome. 21 years ago, next month, CompStat, the now world-famous system, was born here at Police Plaza, initiated by Jack Maple and then Chief of Patrol Louis Anamone. It transformed this department, this city, and in many ways helped to transform American policing. The CompStat system, as initially conceived, was an accountability management system to hold precinct commanders accountable for crime in their precincts. And the intent was to share crime information throughout the department so the leadership of the department, working with precinct commanders, could focus additional attention and resources on identified growing crime pattern problems and trends. Stop a pattern and trend at 3 or 4 incidents rather than 20 or 30 over a period of time. CompStat over the years has evolved from the original really push-pin maps that we were working with, acetate covers, on through the Hewlett-Packard computer that was the first device that attempted to collate large amounts of information, to the incredibly sophisticated computer systems that we now use. The evolution also includes the recent expansion of technology into our police cars and into the hands of every police officer in the NYPD. In March of this year, 2 years after we announced the initiative, we will be issuing the last of the 36,000 smartphones that were specifically created for this department and custom designed. One of the features on that smartphone will be our officers will have access to the CompStat information that up until now has largely been shared within the confines of headquarters at CompStat sessions once a week in this building. Today we are announcing the next evolution of CompStat, CompStat 2, as it's been named by Jessie Tisch, Deputy Commissioner for Information and Technology, and as designed by her and her team here at Police Headquarters. CompStat 2 is the ability to take all of our CompStat information that's discussed in our CompStat meetings, all of the information, with few exceptions, that's shared with our police officers, and now share it with both you, the media, and to the public, most importantly. The ability of somebody in their neighborhood to go on a computer, to bring up the CompStat information and see what is happening in their neighborhood in literally real time, specifically as it relates to the major crimes in their neighborhoods. What we're going to do today, Mayor Blasio speak in a moment. Jessie Tisch, Deputy Commissioner, will explain the system and give some examples of it. Additionally, the smartphone technology I referenced, those 36,000 smartphones, we are farther ahead in any police department in America on that technology, and we'll begin to share it with all of our colleagues in American policing. We're going to give you 4 examples of how that smartphone technology is evolving into an essential tool, much the same as the walkie-talkies every officer carries, an essential tool in how they go about dealing with crime in the city in a contemporary way. And by that I mean in the 21st century with 21st century tools. I want to compliment Jessie Tisch and her people on this evolution, on this development, a remarkable accomplishment, and certainly want to thank Mayor Blasio and the funding that's been provided to acquire this, along with Cy Vance and District Attorney's Office. But with that, before introducing Jessie to explain and give a demonstration on the system, let me please introduce to you Mayor Bill de Blasio. Sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you so much, Commissioner. And Commissioner, this is, I know, the kind of thing you love to do. Take the approaches that are considered innovative and cutting edge and then go even farther. This has been a hallmark of your leadership, looking for the next great innovation, looking for the way to make this the most modern and effective police force in the entire country. And you and your team continue to prove day in and day out that we can go farther, we can do things even better than before. And this is the brilliance of the NYPD, that ability to constantly innovate and improve. I want to thank you for your leadership, and I want people in this city to know this is another step towards being the strongest, best police force for the 21st century, anywhere in this country, anywhere in the world, in fact, because we're using technology in new and better ways, and ways that are going to help the people of this city to see the work of the NYPD every single day. I want to thank all the leaders of the NYPD who are present, including, of course, Chief Jimmy O'Neill, Chief of Department. And I want to thank the officers who are with us. We had the opportunity to meet all of them. I want to thank all of them for what they do for this city. They're also in the front line of using this new technology, and they're helping us to ensure it's working best for our officers. So we have officers here from the 7-3, 6-1, 1-9, and 6-7 precincts. We thank them all. And someone who's been supportive of these important innovations and has really been a strong voice in the City Council to make sure NYPD had all it needs to keep innovating. The chair of the Public Safety Committee in the City Council, Vanessa Gibson, thank you for your leadership. I want you to know that this is part of why the NYPD works so well. This constant focus on going farther. You know, you saw the statistics. Over the last 2 years, major crime down almost 6% because of the work of these good men and women. Safest January ever since we've been keeping records. This last January, the safest we've ever had. February, we're off to a great start. Great numbers and great progress on reducing murders, reducing shootings. NYPD is getting stronger all the time. And CompStat, history will show, CompStat was the beginning of this great turnaround that's now been going on for well over 20 years and is making such an impact on the everyday life of New Yorkers. 22 years ago, Commissioner Bratton, working with the brilliant Jack Maple, started us on this road that changed all of our lives for the better. But it would not be in keeping with their spirit and their approach if we weren't trying to constantly go farther and innovate more. So the theory that undergirded CompStat, figure out the trends, figure out the patterns, figure out how to apply your resources where they were needed most, we're going to go even farther now that we have CompStat 2.0. As you know, CompStat has been picked up on all over the country. It's now considered the best way to do things. And now I imagine when police forces all over the country see this new approach, they're going to want to follow it as well. We want people to know what's going on in their neighborhoods. We want them to see the efforts of the police to address problems. We want that transparency. We want them to see the good news, too, the way the police continue to drive down crime in the neighborhoods. CompStat 2.0 is part of our larger commitment to making the NYPD the most technologically advanced force in the world. That's so important for the protection of our officers. That's so important for fighting everyday crime. It's so important for fighting terror. All of these pieces come together in our focus on technology. So as of today, 25,000 of our officers have smartphones, almost 70% of the force. As you heard from the Commissioner, by March, that will be everyone. 1,300 police cars have tablets. It allows everyone in the force to be on the same page, the same information, the same suspect descriptions, instantly transmitted across the whole force. That's revolutionary. That's going to allow us to get bad guys who eluded us in the past. That's going to allow for a much safer city. You know, what officers have tried to do in the past with limited information has been extraordinary. The effect on crime, the driving down of crime without all the tools our officers deserved. Now, with these new tools, they'll be able to go much farther. And it's going to help in the relationship between police and community, too. Because one of the things we're emphasizing under the new neighborhood policing strategy is the constant communication between community members and the police who serve them. We want community members to get to know the police. We want community members to feel free to call the police officer they know with tips, with ideas on where there might be a problem, so we can stop crime in many cases before it happens. This is going to facilitate that as well. I want to offer my congratulations to Deputy Commissioner Tisch and all of those who have worked on this initiative. We're going to see the fruits of your labor and your team's labor very soon as this becomes a city that's even safer because our officers have the very best technology. Quickly in Spanish, me complace anunciar CompStat 2.0, el nuevo sistema de datos que ayuda a la policía a seguir y analizar el crimen en la ciudad de Nueva York. Ahora los neoyorquinos tendrán más información a su alcance, cumpliendo nuestra promesa de mejorar la transparencia en el gobierno. Seguimos dando a los oficiales de policía nuevos teléfonos inteligentes, tabletas y recursos para mantener a nuestra ciudad segura. Thank you, Commissioner.
We're bringing Jesse up. I want to acknowledge certainly Chief of Department Jim O'Neill and our Deputy Commissioner that runs our CompStat process, that Jermit Shea. Two of them have worked extensively with Jesse and her team to develop the CompStat 2. they take that technology and apply it in the day-to-day operations of the department. So both of them are here, and I want to acknowledge certainly their contribution working with Jesse's staff on what Jesse's about to present to you, the next phase of CompStat 2.0. Jesse.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jessie Tisch. I'm Deputy Commissioner of Information Technology. I am going to brief you on two topics today. I'll start by providing an overview and a brief demo of CompStat 2.0, a new tool that, as the Commissioner and the Mayor said, we created for the public to view crime numbers. And I'll also give you an update on our smartphone initiative. Let's jump right into CompStat 2.0. CompStat 2.0 is designed to provide unprecedented access to NYPD crime statistics, essentially to give the public the data and the tools that they need to view, map, and analyze NYPD crime numbers, so that the residents of this city get a timely sense of where and when crime is occurring. On the screen above me is a live look at CompStat 2.0, which will be made available to you and to the world immediately following this press conference. In the left panel, you see the digitized version of the CompStat book. This book right here. So that left panel is essentially what's contained in this book.
You want to throw that in the trash? Or?
Yeah. This is the same book that the department has used for the past 20 years to analyze crime numbers at the weekly CompStat briefings. So how does it work? Well, we can choose to view the citywide CompStat numbers, or we can look by borough or even by precinct. For purposes of this demonstration, let's hone in on a patrol borough, Manhattan North, which represents the 19th, 20th Central Park and 23rd to 34th precincts. The panel on the left side of the screen displays the CompStat numbers for the week ending Sunday, February 21st. In addition to the 7 major felony categories, murder, rape, robbery, felony assault, burglary, grand larceny, and grand larceny auto, this panel provides counts for shooting incidents, shooting victims, petit larceny, misdemeanor assault, and misdemeanor sex crimes, as well as breakdowns for housing and transit crimes. If we click, for example, on the week-to-date robbery number, which is 26, the system will map the 26 complaints down to the nearest intersection. You can see that in the middle panel on the map. The panels on the right side of the screen allow us to analyze or break down those 26 robberies. For example, we can look at those 26 robberies by day of the week, by precinct, by hour, or by crime subtype. If we look at day of the week, for example, we see our highest volume of 5 occurred on Sunday. If we look by precinct, we see the 3-4 led the rest of the borough in robberies for the week with 6. If we want to drill down on crime subtype, we see 5 of these robberies occurred in an open area, and another 5 were classified as involving personal electronic devices. Now, let's try one more totally different example. We'll move away from Manhattan North, and we'll pull up the citywide CompStat page for the week. Here, let's look at the year-to-date murder numbers. We see in the book on the left panel that the number for this year was 36 as of Sunday night, as compared to 52 murders at the same time in 2015. Clicking on the murder number, of course, populates the 36 homicides on the map, mapped down to the nearest intersection. And again, we can pull up charts. What I want to highlight here is our timeline chart in the bottom right panel, which shows us how we are doing so far this year in murders, going back over 20 years to 1993. So essentially, at the end of the 3rd week in February this year, we have the lowest homicide number we've ever had at this point in the year. Each number on this CompStat book is clickable, which means each number can be mapped and analyzed using the various charting tools. So, how can you access this tool? CompStat 2.0 will be made available directly at https://comstat.nypdonline.org, or if that is a mouthful, there will be a direct link to it on the NYPD's website following this press conference. I want to note that it will be available both on desktops as well as mobile devices. So if you want to pull it up as you're walking out on your mobile phone, that is available as well. A few additional quick things to note. First, timing of disclosures. The website is going to be updated every Wednesday. So essentially, the public will, for the very first time, have access to the week's crime statistics even before they are discussed by NYPD executives at the weekly Thursday CompStat meeting. Second, the data is subject to change as complaints are investigated. It's very important to keep that in mind. Numbers hit the CompStat book as soon as the complaint is entered into our system. So oftentimes that occurs even before investigation. Crimes may be upgraded or downgraded pursuant to investigations, and those changes reflected in subsequent weeks' CompStat numbers. Third, mapping of rapes. Rapes will be mapped, like all other crimes reported on this site, down to the nearest intersection. This was chosen to ensure victim privacy, but also to give the public a better sense than they've had in the past of where these crimes are occurring. Historically, rapes had been mapped to the precinct house in the precinct of occurrence, so that represents a major change. Fourth, this is an unprecedented tool that the NYPD is providing to the public. As far as we've been able to research, no other police department in the world provides the public an analytic engine like this one for crime mapping and review. And we are committed to continuing to enhance this tool over the coming months and years. In fact, this website is powered by the very same technology that the NYPD itself uses to analyze and report on crime data as part of our CompStat process. Now, I'm going to transition away from CompStat 2.0 and talk a little bit about our smartphones. So first, let me start with the numbers. To date, we've given out roughly 25,000 smartphones, and we've put 1,300 tablets in vehicles. As of today, all members of the service in patrol precincts and housing commands have the smartphones. And by the end of this week, all numbered patrol, housing, transit, and special operations division commands, essentially any command that would respond to an emergency call for service, will have the phones. All 36,000 phones will be distributed by the end of the spring. My take on it is that the phones are creating a revolution in policing before our eyes, allowing our cops to be smarter, faster, more agile in their response to crime. They are contributing to the fastest citywide response times in recent history, positive interactions with the public as a tool used heavily by our neighborhood coordination officers, and enhanced field investigation capabilities, to say nothing of officer safety. Think about it this way. 2 years ago, your average New York City police officer did not have her own phone number, did not have an email address, voicemail, and certainly no access to the internet. These very basic tools that you and I rely on to do our jobs day in and day out, the cops did not have access to them. Imagine being a detective. The lifeblood of your work is your contact and your interaction with complainants, with victims, with witnesses, district attorneys' offices, and yet you don't have an email address and you share a phone line with 10 other detectives assigned to your squad. Voicemail, no way. The fact that these smartphones provided these very, very basic tools to cops in and of itself has driven productivity in this department. And that's even before we start to discuss the custom applications that are available to the cops on the phones. The 911 dispatching app that alerts cops to 911 jobs even before they come over the radio, and oftentimes with much more specificity in terms of descriptions. The universal search app that provides enterprise search of all department databases and certain state and federal databases. The form creation app, which is paving the way for this department to go paperless. The blast messaging app that allows us to send wanted flyers, missing person notices, officer safety alerts, you name it, direct to officers' phones based on their assignment, but also based on their physical location. A mobile case management system and there we go, a mobile fingerprinting system, which is presently being piloted in commands across the city with success already in the first weeks of that program. As the commissioner said, no other police department in the world has anything that even approaches these capabilities. So today, I'm going to highlight 4 stories very quickly that get at what the smartphones can do, but I want you to keep in mind that these phones are used all the time to respond to jobs, to locate missing children, to investigate and solve crime patterns, and thus the stories that I'm going to recount to you today are simply a representative sample. Many of the officers that I'll tell you about today are obviously here. It is a great honor for me to be able to tell their stories, and I believe you'll have the opportunity to meet them as soon as we're done here. So let me jump right in. On December 4th, 2015, officers in the 7-3 precinct that's in Brownsville used the department's smartphone to recover 2 illegal handguns. The details of this are as follows. Sergeant Lewis and police officers Allen, George, and Lawrence.
Raise your hand when your name is said.
Okay.
Back of us there.
Coming up with each group, yeah, that's good.
Put a face with the name.
Put a face with a name.
Well, they responded to 409 Saratoga Avenue after receiving an alert on their smartphones from ShotSpotter, shown on the screen above me. The alert was for 8 rounds, and you can hear the audio. The officers began investigating and found 8 shell casings on the rooftop of the building. The team again used their NYPD-issued smartphones to ascertain if there were any active arrest warrants associated with the address. Their search revealed that, in fact, an outstanding arrest warrant existed for one of the building's residents. The search results are on the screen above me. After knocking on the apartment door that the smartphone led them to, the officers were met by the woman who was the subject of the outstanding warrant, and further investigation led the officers to observe in plain sight bullets on the table of the apartment. At this time, the woman and the 2 men who were also in the apartment were placed under arrest, and the officers requested a search warrant for the location. Further investigation pursuant to the search warrant yielded 2 loaded semi-automatic handguns. The picture of these guns is on the screen behind me, and all 3 individuals were charged with criminal possession of a weapon. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right, our next one. On January 21st, 2016, officers in the 61st precinct, that's in Sheepshead Bay, they used the department's smartphone to arrest a man in possession of a loaded handgun who had just committed a larceny. The details are as follows. Lieutenant Bruce Separano and police officer Angelo Russignolo were on patrol when Lieutenant Separano received an alert on his department smartphone that a larceny was in progress at the subway station on Gravesend Neck Road and East 16th Street. The alert, which is on the screen above me, came to the smartphone even before it could be dispatched over the radio. The alert on the smartphone gave details to the two officers that a male wearing a blue mask, a black jacket, black pants, and Timberland boots grabbed a cell phone from a subway passenger. The team quickly responded and canvassed the area, which resulted in the stop of a suspect, matching the description contained in the smartphone alert. Further investigation revealed that the man who was stopped was in possession of not only the stolen cell phone, but also a loaded .357 Smith & Wesson revolver. The suspect was positively identified by the victim as the man who took the cell phone, and the 15-year-old teen was charged with criminal possession of a weapon, grand larceny, and criminal possession of stolen property. I want to note in this example that on a high-volume radio zone, a dispatcher might not have the time to transmit all of the details, including such a specific description of the perpetrator over the air. By putting such detailed information in the hands of the responding officers, the smartphones are helping us target the right people at the right time. Let's move on to our next. Thank you. All right, 19th precinct. All right, guys. On January 28th, 2016, police officers from the 19th Precinct Anti-Crime Team used the department smartphone to arrest a suspect wanted in connection with 8 bank robberies. The details are as follows. A wanted flyer for a man being sought in connection with the bank robberies was transmitted to all department smartphones. It's on the screen above me. Because of the pattern of robberies in the 19th Precinct and adjoining areas, known to the department as Citywide Robbery Pattern 1, the team set their department smartphones to alert them to any calls of commercial establishment alarms, which we call 1011s, as well as for robberies in progress, which we call 1030s. Sure enough, the team was alerted via their department smartphone to a bank alarm going off. This happened within seconds of the bank teller pressing the alarm button and prior to the job being put over police radio. The alert is on the screen above me. The officers were able to quickly respond and arrest the suspect before he left the area. Thank you so much. Last one. All right. 6-7. The last one. All right. On January 27th, 2016, a police officer from the 67th Precinct used a department smartphone to arrest a suspect for violation of an order of protection. Details are as follows. Police Officer Thompson was attempting to conduct a family visit, but found the victim's address to be incorrect. Using his department smartphone, the officer discovered the correct address and was able to determine that the victim's boyfriend had been violating an order of protection by showing up to her address. The victim stated that in the past, officers had not been able to respond quickly enough to arrest the violator. Essentially, the violator would leave the apartment shortly after the victim called 911, and by the time the cops were able to respond, the perpetrator would have fled. Using his department smartphone, Officer Thompson confirmed the validity of the protection order and gave the victim his department smartphone number with instructions to call him directly that evening, in addition to calling 911 if the boyfriend reappeared. Later that evening, sure enough, the boyfriend returned. The victim called Officer Thompson's cell phone, and Officer Thompson effected the arrest. Thank you. All right. So I do. As the hold on, as the mayor referenced, in 1962, the NYPD began using two-way You feel it. Well, I guess.
Oh, do a workout with one of these.
I'm going to tell you a story in a moment about this.
So in 1962, the NYPD began using two-way communication portable police radios. In the 54, we can turn it around for you. In the 54 years since, police radio communications have evolved very little. Essentially, the major advancements have come in the form of a few pounds lighter and a few inches smaller. In that context, it is clear that these department smartphones represent the single largest transformation in emergency communications in over half a century, for sure.
You got to put it in a row. Come on, you got to do the visual for these guys. There we go. 21st century here. Get your head down
All
there.
right.
One more second. Okay, could you guys clear out so these guys in the back again? Do them one more time. Just give them one more clean shot. Hold on. Clean shot, clean shot.
1962 is when they started.
Okay, there you go.
All right.
Nicely done.
I might
Well done.
digress for a moment and talk about this device. I came into policing in 1970. In 1970, the Boston Police Department was just beginning to field test what we call walkie-talkies. They look like something out of World War II, the size of them, weigh about 3 pounds. In my precinct, if you wanted to call for assistance, if you're out on post, you'd have to go find a call box, open the call box, and inside the call box was a two-piece phone, mouthpiece, and something like out of the 1920s. When you were making a call, you hoped that somebody would not come along and slam the door on your head while you had your head in the box. If they wanted to find you when you were on your post, they would light the little red light on the top of the call box, and you would be reminded by the sergeant at the end of roll call, watch the lights, boys, watch the lights. Meaning if we wanted you to give you a call, you would respond to that call box and get your call. Then these came along, 1971. We only had 4 of them in the police precinct for normally about 30 of us going out on roll call and about 20 of us on walking posts. We would run like hell out of the station so we wouldn't get assigned one of these walkie-talkies. 1, it weighed about 3 pounds, and 2, they could find you with the walkie-talkie. How far we have come. There's no police officer in his right mind that would leave and go on patrol without this device today, or increasingly without this device here. So in 45 years, how far we have come.
That's right.
Okay. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Well, I just want to thank the commissioner and thank Jesse. This is just extraordinary progress. And those examples, Jesse, I want to commend you and all the officers. I hope all of you will tell the people in New York City about the exceptional work of our officers, but look at how quickly in each case a perp was caught who might have been missed in the past. Look at the immediate change this is making, which I think is extraordinary. We're going to take questions on the topic of this announcement, and then we'll take other police-related questions after that.
Mr. Brett, 1970, you walked from beating Madison, put you in the car, chasing 911 calls instead of walking beat in the neighborhood. Does this represent the future of policing, that your officers don't have to respond to 911 calls?
Sure, I've been around so long. I've gone through 4 revolutions in the evolution. And the idea of being here in the NYPD in 2016, as we finish the initial implementation of the issuance of these phones. But what you heard here today was not just the pride we have in creating it, developing all the specialized apps, and we'll be taking it to American policing, because everything we have we'll be sharing, but the creativity to which the officers are putting its use. The idea of being able to program it so they get alerts about burglar alarms in progress. In every instance, I think the officers had tremendous amounts of information about the call before it was ever dispatched. In our busy precincts, that's so busy that what you run out of is airtime. You in this room understand airtime. You only get so much of it on a 6 o'clock newscast. On the busy precinct, there's only so much time that can be spent sending it out. This will revolutionize, certainly, the operations of the NYPD, but these devices will, as this began to revolutionize it in the 70s, this certainly will officer safety, public safety, as well as officer job satisfaction that they have tools to work with.
And just note from a public point of view, too, for the public now to have this level of transparency, NYPD is very comfortable offering this transparency because they're doing a great job, because they want the public to be their partners. They have no problem with people knowing when something's going on, so we can work with the community to address it. But on top of that, of all the amazing things Jesse just said, think about that one point that just 2 years ago, these professionals did not, as a general rule, have an email that people could reach them on or they could reach people with, or a phone number that went right to them. I think of all the ways that hindered their work, whereas that very powerful example of the domestic violence victim who could call an officer she trusted directly, and this time the arrest happened that didn't happen in the past. We're seeing examples of that through this extraordinary neighborhood policing strategy, where individual residents are saying, I want the officer I know to know about someone who has committed a crime, might commit a crime, might have a gun. That information is invaluable to our police, and now they have the tools to actually get that information with.
Do you feel comfortable about the level of transparency there's been? There was a story in the Times about, rapes along the bus route, and if rapes weren't previously met, but now with CompStat, the rapes are met.
I'll say, as the civilian here, I think it's very important for the public to see what's going on and to also see the efforts that NYPD is making to address the situation. Now, we also have to be clear. There's going to be different types of situations in each case. If we all know there could be a stranger rape, it could be, unfortunately, a domestic situation. There's all sorts of different permutations, and we're going to always explain to people what we're dealing with in each situation. But I think information is power for everyone, certainly for our residents to know what's going on so they can be part of the solution. And we want them to share information. One thing I think will happen is the more they see, the more they'll tell the police. The more they'll share with the police the information they have, and that will make for better policing.
All of you who routinely cover the police department are familiar with our plan of action and the 5 T's that inform that, the strategies: terrorism, trust, technology, training, and the issue of the new tactics, neighborhood policing. There's actually a 6th T that basically embraces all of those, and that's transparency. Because everything we're doing is about opening up the department to the greatest degree possible in a very timely fashion. As Jesse indicated, the public will actually be getting the information that's discussed every Thursday morning here at the CompStat room up on the 8th floor, a day before it's actually discussed by the police leaders. Those police leaders will be getting it, and they'll be working on it, but the department looking at it in total will literally be almost simultaneous with the public. So the transparency that we're attempting to bring to you in the media, and then certainly to the public, is in many respects unprecedented because of the technology that we're acquiring, the training we're giving to our officers, and the basically the trust that we're trying to build with the public, that there's nothing to hide here. It is what it is. Crime goes up, it goes down, but it'll go down a lot faster if everybody is aware of it and everybody is sharing information about what is happening.
Amen. Amen. Yes.
Well, actually, dispatch function is going to be changing anyway. We will be later this year opening the brand new state-of-the-art 911 facility up in the Bronx, that when you match that system up against what we have in Brooklyn, you'll see the evolution over the last 15 years in 911. One of those evolutions is the mapping of our police cars, where we can see every police car in the city, where it is in real time. Dispatchers will soon have that capability. So even as they're taking in 911 calls, they'll be able to see, well, what is the actual closest police car to that call, and is it available? Even as the cops are getting the information that she's looking at, actually almost before she's looking at it. You're only beginning to see with these 4 stories, the blending of, think of the blending, shot spotter, officers arrive, shell casings, smartphone, get information on warrants, go downstairs, knock on the door. There is a warrant for the person answering the door. They get in the apartment, live rounds on the table, get a search warrant over the smartphone again, make an arrest, 2 guns recovered. The blending of the technology that were required in just the 2 years, the investment that the mayor, the city council are making in this department. There's never been a time in the history of the department where so much is being invested in giving our cops the tools to work with. It's that simple.
Amen.
With officers getting email addresses and cell phones,
I'm going to speak, I want that advice to come from PD. I want to make a broader point and let the commissioner and his team answer that very specifically. But I do want you to understand the amount of change happening here is extraordinary. And what's happening with neighborhood policing, we've heard these stories and they're incredibly moving. The way our officers have bonded with community members, thus leading the community members to want to get them tips. We've heard stories of arrests that wouldn't have happened. We've heard stories of guns being taken off the streets that wouldn't have been taken off the streets if there wasn't for that kind of communication. So where it's appropriate, an officer makes the decision to share their phone number with someone and say, I want to hear from you, that's because the officer has made the assessment that that's going to lead to a valuable interchange of information. And that's going to, again, give officers something that, to me, thinking like any other professional, information's power. If someone who has knowledge of a situation gives you that tip in time, it can make a world of difference. You can speak to how you want to handle it.
Next phases of what we're talking about would be the complainant actually being able to be given a complaint number by the officer at the scene of the report, and then being able to get a copy of that complaint number by going online, saving the trip down to the station house to get it. Same for accident reports. So the spin-offs, if you will, of this technology as far as customer satisfaction, being able to get a report very quickly for insurance purposes, having contact information with officers through email or cell phone. Our neighborhood coordinating officers, as you know, are out there, and one of the benefits that they are able to give to the public is the accessibility through those devices that we're talking about.
Commissioner, so for the operation of smartphones, has there been any impact on clearance rates for crimes that are speeding that
Well, you've already seen the stories that were just related about the speed of the process. Understand that we don't go to full implementation till March at some point in time, but just think of the rapidity of designing and issuing these phones. All in March of 2014, at a Police Foundation breakfast, Jesse and I announced that we were going to start developing this technology. And literally on the second anniversary of that announcement, we'll be issuing the 36,000th phone. That they're probably going to have it gold-plated that as a kind of a memento for the officer.
I'll make it kind of heavy for the officer, but still.
He'll be happy. The speed of it, though, and then when she talked about the fingerprint technology, the ability with that device in the field for an officer to confirm that you are who you say you are, the speed of that instead of bringing a person all the way back to the station house. We've also already begun to look at using FaceTime and Skype on these devices, so the officer may never even have to go to traffic court or summons court. He may be able to literally be called from court, go online, engage in a dialogue face-to-face, and save all that time sitting around traffic court waiting to basically deal with the summonses. The revolution that is beginning is truly only just beginning as it relates to these devices.
Let me just add to that key point. So that means officers who can spend more time on the streets protecting the people of the city. By the way, for taxpayers, that's an incredible step forward. Not having our officers tied up sitting in a courtroom when they could be out doing their job. I mean, that is an amazing innovation in many, many ways. Just one informational note, Deputy Commissioner Tisch made the point, that very powerful example with the domestic violence case. Remember what she said. The officer instructed the woman involved to call 911 and call him. So whenever there might be a crime in progress, of course 911 is the go-to, as always, and will be. But the point is, this gives a whole nother ability to communicate something, in that case allowing the officer to act so quickly.
Can I just give...
Hold on one second.
I just, to answer your question a little bit, I don't have numbers to back up clearance rates, but just to get a sense of the usage of the phones, okay? So 25,000 phones distributed. Yesterday, 5,329 cops swiped their ID card on the back of their smartphone to use one of the custom designed apps. Those 5,000 plus officers looked at 26,693 911 jobs. That means that's how many they reviewed. I'm sorry, 28,941 911 jobs. They viewed 2,079 wanted flyers. They ran 36,000 searches or queries of databases. It's huge, like it's staggering usage of this mobile platform.
Andrew.
One of his concerns, I don't know if you saw that sort of, perhaps unintentionally, what's your response to his claim, and are you concerned at all that
Bullshit. Bullshit is my response to that. Quite clearly.
Okay, believe it.
The idea of CompStat, O'Neill and Dermott spend too much time pushing quality, not quantity. If any of my cops out there still think we're pushing for the summonses, et cetera, I'm sorry. We're pushing to reduce crime. They never talk about number of summonses, et cetera. They talk about what's going on the collaboration between the various units. So that officer, one of 36,000, that may be his impression. He's entitled to that impression. But those are not the practices, policies, procedures that I'm putting into this organization. So he's entitled to his opinion. I don't share it quite clearly.
Let's do others related to CompStat, and then we'll go to other police topics. Anything else on CompStat?
Chief Boyce, how does this help your detectives? Saw in some of these instances, but like getting responses posters out. Talk about this.
Chief? Sure, thank you.
I think you've seen from the 19th precinct what happened, the bank robbery. Major case detectives were on the scene, got that picture out immediately, and forwarded that. These cases, when you expedite these investigations by patrol, they don't come to me. So I have more time to work my cases, other cases that I do catch. I can't explain how well this has happened. Right now, we have a 77% clearance rate on our homicides. This plays into that, getting information out immediately, taking pictures of crime scene, uploading it, and sending it out. So it's really facilitated my job tremendously.
How does 77% compare to whatever 10 years ago?
77% is nationwide is 62%. So we're 15% higher than everybody else in the country. We're proud of that, and I push that forward. That is facilitated by this technology. So back, if we go back, I don't want to. There's a lot of living chief of detectives around. I don't want to embarrass them. We've done a lot better than in past years because of that.
Diplomat, sir. All right. Yes.
Are you talking about CompStat 2.0 or the phones? Oh, okay. So we're going to load it every Wednesday to update all of the crime numbers. So every Wednesday it might be down for an hour or so while we load the week's crime numbers. And then all of that information lives on the website for the week. And so you can populate whatever charts and graphs and mapping you need. Oh, about staffing? No, because we're using the same technology to give the information to the public as we use ourselves at the NYPD. This didn't require any extra headcount. It was just something that we had to tailor for the public, but the same staff does it.
Hey, CompStat, Rich.
The first part of the question I didn't hear.
Louder. The first part was. Not on statistics. We're not talking about individual.
No, in other words, there's certain information that's not shared with the officers out in the field on the CompStat. That's some of the investigations that even in CompStat itself, there's certain information that is not discussed in that general room with 200 people. So when I talk about exceptions, but other than that, in terms of so much of what you see, there's no place that has as much transparency, both to the officers in the field as well as now to you and the media and the public on day to day. On the second question that you asked, I'm sorry that the...
Would people be looking at their phone all the time?
That becomes an issue of concern in general, that we certainly are concerned about that, people walking down the street into intersections with looking at the devices. With the officers, the encouragement is that of necessity, they're going to need to look into their devices, much the same as if they're writing reports. But what we try to drive home is that both officers in the car, one of them not be engaged in using those devices. And it's a feature of one of the major concerns that we would have going forward. Let me ask Chief O'Neill to expand on it, because there's been a subject of a number of discussions here at headquarters on that issue.
Hey, Rich, I'm just going to give you a real specific example on this. So I had the opportunity to stop at KCH, Kings County, this morning to visit with Bill Redden, who's being released. I think he was released at 1 o'clock this afternoon. So he was excited about being released from the hospital. Then we started to talk about the phone, and he got even more excited. So, and I asked him about that. All right, so you're driving around, you're in 8-1 anti-crime. What are some of the issues? He goes, this is the way we do it. I drive, and Andy uses the phone. That's the way we do it. And they use it every day, and they use it successfully. So there are some tactical issues, and we push that out to everybody to make sure that if you're together, one person looks at the phone. And if you're by yourself, you have to be careful how you're using it.
Okay, yes, please. The cost of which piece?
A lot.
Technology. Yeah, a lot is the answer.
The mobility platform, which is the 36,000 phones, the tablets in every police vehicle, that's being funded by a $140 million grant we got. It's forfeiture funding, half from the mayor's office and half from DA Vance's office.
Okay, last call on Comstat. Yes.
We have a number of initiatives underway in precincts using some technology that's out there. What is the one that I always mispronounce the name? Idea Scale, which allows a precinct commander to literally set up in his precinct a mechanism where people living in that precinct can join a network contained within the precinct to engage in discussions with the precinct commander about issues of concern that they're identifying. Others chime in and vote in that, yes, this is something of concern. Precinct commander then sends his resources out. They take a photo of the condition as it exists, and then the condition as it's been addressed and rectified. So in addition to what we, the department, are putting out in terms of the device, the creativity of our personnel, whether it's a precinct commander engaging in that use of that system, or the officers, the idea of the bank robbery issue that was discussed there, the ingenuity of one of those officers to knowing on how that smartphone would work, to have the alarm go directly to his device, not waiting for it to go through 9/11, was creativity. That's not something we taught him. That's something that basically he engaged in with his own creativity. That, however, that's a learning tool for us, because as Jessie gets all of these, she'll be building that into her training in notices and alerts to officers as they go forward. Here's all the things that this phone is capable of, but as we evolve it, there'll be many that we had never anticipated. I'd be willing to bet you probably never anticipated that one. He did. And we got a lot of very smart cops out there, and they're going to make a lot of great use of these devices.
Okay. On now, any police topics? Yes.
On a more low-tech issue, during the trial of Officer Bianco, he and Mark testified that he got rudimentary training in first aid, that they allowed a woman who was friends with Riker to continue administering CPR, but they felt that she was better qualified to give instructions when the time has come out. Does that concern you?
Oh, very much so. That we had people monitoring that trial every day, as you might expect. And immediately upon that statement being made, we initiated an internal affairs investigation that has become very extensive. We are reviewing very intimately everyone that was in their class and we will be interviewing every officer that was in their class to validate or not confirm the statements made by those officers during the trial. So that is the subject. I've been briefed a number of times on the progress of that. We're investing too much in training to improve it, because it is so critical to the officers' safety themselves, but also the safety of the public. So under no circumstances will we tolerate any instructor in the New York City Police Department short-circuiting the process, whether it's the instructions itself or the testing to validate that the officer has the skills necessary to safely patrol the city. So literally within a half hour of that testimony being made, Internal Affairs was initiating their investigation. And we'll be happy to share it with you once we bring it to closure. Okay?
Earlier this month, in reference to the stabbings and slashings, you said the media was putting a lot of focus on it. Do you have a different viewpoint now that you know
Not at all. Shootings and murders are down, so you've lost interest in them. When was the last time any of you reported on that? They're down dramatically, as Jesse just referenced. If it bleeds, it leads. That's your business. Right now, the stabbings, the slashings, the cuttings, you have a tendency to conflate it because it is very confusing. What's a stabbing versus a cutting versus a slashing? But it deserves attention. People are concerned about it, that we've had a number of incidents. But once again, it's a matter of, while being concerned about it, and people have a right to be, putting it into perspective. And in terms of putting it into perspective, and we discussed this in our crime briefings in the morning, as we discuss shootings, it's murders, stabbings are one of the areas that we look at. Bob Boyce can give you a little breakdown in the sense of, over these last 2 months, what's actually been going on. From the larger number, the overall increase of about 19%. But as we do, we tend to break it down with a higher degree of intimacy. So I'm not faulting you at all that we want your attention to this, because the arrests that we're making oftentimes are as a result of you putting out our videos to the public. So we're, in some respects, we're in this together. This is not something we're trying to downplay or diminish. Anything that creates public fear or concern, we want to work with you and work with the public to very quickly dispel that. Much the same as the shootings and the murders, which captured so much attention over the last 2 years. Things have been very quiet on that front. So very appropriate to focus attention on what is disturbing the public.
I just want a quick addition before I want you to hear from Chief Boyce, and then we'll do any follow-up. But look, I fully understand many New Yorkers are concerned about this, and I share their concern. And we're doing everything that we can to make sure people are safe every day, which is why, again, crime is down, murders are down, shootings are down, gun arrests are up, arrests for knives and summons for knives are up as well. But the thing that I think Chief Boyce can help to point out here is, I think what people are very concerned about is, could something happen to them randomly? Could something happen, sadly, with an emotionally disturbed person? The facts presented, there's been over 500 of any type of stabbing, slashing, cutting, et cetera, in the course of this year. Only 7 were identified as anything that apparently could even be random. And that's very important for people to understand. What are the others? Criminal fighting a criminal, someone gets in a fight with someone else, someone's committing some other kind of crime, and they use a weapon. But what has really gripped New Yorkers is, could it be randomly something that happens to me? Thank God the answer is, it's very, very rare. And in the few cases it's happened, most of those folks have already been caught. Who did that?
Good afternoon, everybody. Lisa, to answer your question, 567 slashings and stabbings this year versus 470 last year, up 97, almost 100. So it's a cause for deep concern. A little over 20% increase. Now, we look at these things, and domestic violence is not the issue. It's up very slightly, but it's not the overall issue. The overarching is that one of the issues we saw is in the Bronx. 56 of that 97 that were up came out of the Bronx, in the streets of the Bronx. And I say streets because that's where it is. That's 68% of the increase. So we speak to the deployment, we look at things, and we put more people out in the street. One of the things we looked at, initially, things come into us, and it's described as random. We drilled down on it, and 11 came in as random. We drilled down, it was actually 7. Okay, and exactly. A very small number, but a number nonetheless that we have to investigate. Of that 7, we made 5 arrests. With the help of the media and the people of New York, we put out pictures. We make the arrests. One of those individuals, Carrie Bazemore, we arrested 2 incidents where he slashed someone, one in the Bronx and one in Manhattan. We have a Francis Salud. He is an Asian male who slashed a male black out of animus towards from a prior robbery. Angel Felez Volquez, if you remember the machete attack in the Bronx in Mont Haven. We go through these things, and Damon Knowles, who slashed a 51-year-old lady on the train in Lower Manhattan. All these folks were identified through Crime Stoppers. So that's how we got them. We have 2 outstanding. We haven't made. We're still working those cases now. That's the young lady who was stabbed with a needle in Midtown North. We brought someone in. We thought it might be him. It wasn't. And we continue to work the case. And the other case is the Jewish male stabbed in a 7-1. That's a hate crime. So very small numbers when you look at randomness. Most of these things are born out of arguments in the street. I had 4 in the Bronx over the weekend, all in the midnights. A lot of it had to do with alcohol. So again, we'll drill down. We already got 2 people identified in those.
Dean.
That was not random. We don't believe right now. That woman you're talking about, I think in the 4-7 precinct, Dean, you're talking about? Yeah. That young lady's uncooperative with us. So we get that from time to time. We have pulled video at that location. We see cars pull up, people run off. It looks like something had happened just prior to that. Hopefully we'll bring her back in. She can tell us exactly what happened. That particular young lady was stabbed once before, and she was uncooperative as well. So this is the type of things detectives, when they go out, they pull video, they do their canvases for witnesses. We find out what really happened, or as far as we can with an uncooperative witness. That number is as of this morning. We do a daily of everything that happens in the city to the chief of the department's office.
Marsh. I want to be clear, Marcia. No, I want to be clear. I'm assuring them right now, this is the finest police force in the country. You've just heard ample evidence of it. So, Marcia, you just have to hear this whether you like it or not. This is the finest police force in the country. They have driven down crime for years. Right now, they're in the middle of continuing to drive down murders and shootings. And as you heard, the thing that scares people, which is a random slashing by an emotionally disturbed person, thank God, is very, very rare. But in the few instances where it's happened, they caught people in almost every case, and they'll continue to do their great work. I did not say wait for new cops. I said you asked the question what would be additionally reassuring to people. That 2,000 more cops will be on the beat in the course of this year should be another cause for reassurance. But the number one reason to be reassured is we have the finest police force in the country, and we have the numbers to prove it. Yes.
We have, as you know, as part of our re-engineering of the department, among the many new units we created was a centralized force investigation division, 60 or 70 detectives that work for the chief, the first deputy commissioner. We have not had the briefing on that shooting. I was at the scene and visited the office in the hospital over the weekend. I think we're slated to have the force investigation division briefing on that shooting tomorrow. Took a little longer to provide the briefing they give to me and the senior leadership because of it basically covered a large area, the large number of shots. We potentially have the ability on the second officer who was shot with bullet fragments, possibly from a ricochet, based on the location of that officer to make some type of determination. Was he, in fact, in the potential line of fire of the suspect, or was he in a position where he would have been hit by a ricochet from one of our rounds? That's the intimacy of the investigations that are done, that in terms of we now have the ability to virtually recreate the incident and identify where the officers were at the time of the shootings. So I'd anticipate before the end of the week we may have some additional clarification, not only for the officers involved, but for you and the media as to exactly what happened at that scene. That some of those fragments can't be taken out, the placement, and in any event, a fragment's not going to be definitive that other than the type of jacketing or the type of fragment, the ammunition that the individual had in his weapon versus the ammunition that our officers carry. But I understand, Jimmy, and you had visited that most of it's still in him, is that correct? But what we'll look to do is, as we do the recreation, where was he standing versus where his partner was standing? Could he have conceivably actually been shot by a ricochet from the suspect? And this is important in terms of charging that suspect. We can certainly charge the suspect and the first officer, but as to charging him for the shooting of the second, that's going to really rely on our ability to create the evidence to support that charge. The question is the smartphones being able to help in moving toward the prediction of crime. I think you've heard me talk about frequently that we're in to the predictive policing phase in the evolution of policing. And in this department, we're currently experimenting with about 3 or 4 different predictive technologies, if you will, algorithms that would help us on potentially predicting where a crime may occur at what period of time. All this information that's gathered up by CompStat will help to inform those algorithms, but the phones themselves will not necessarily be in a position to develop that predictive capability. But what we are engaged in, and the phones are very helpful with, is the precision policing that we're talking about, the idea of as crime becomes less in the city, we are able to track it much more precisely. So, for example, the shot spotter system that's going to be shortly in 30 square miles of the city, it gives us the shots as they're fired. The officers get that information instantly and are able to respond, and sometimes the suspect is still there. It's that quick. Or with the creativity of those officers who went up to the roof, got the shell casings. Those shell casings will be turned in for DNA analysis. But in this instance, they use the smartphone to, very creative on their part, is there somebody in that building that's wanted on a warrant, maybe on a gun warrant? And so there's almost a predictive tool in itself that short-circuiting an investigation by doing it right there.
All right, we'll only do 2 more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3 more. Go.
Yes, that's the issue this morning. Bob, are you up to speed on that? Okay.
She was smoking a cigarette in the back of the bus on 3rd Avenue. The bus driver asked her to stop. She wouldn't. He then started to clear the bus, pull over at 96th Street. As he was clearing the bus, he stepped outside. She then drove the bus 4 blocks and was waved down by a dispatcher bus, and she was stopped. We took it for a psychiatric review directly thereafter. That's pretty much the story there. After the psychiatric review, we'll review that and see if it bears that way.
Regarding safety, the back and forth between your administration and the governor about incident, I'm wondering if you have spoken to the governor and his staff in particular, what sort of problems you understand that's part of the retribution agenda that you're concerned about the government being back?
Haven't spoken to him. Have no idea what motivated it because there was no truth in it. I leave it to you to draw your own conclusions. But I think Commissioner Banks' letter speaks for itself.
Hey, you asked about affordable housing. I don't know if you mind giving us an update on that.
We're doing policing here. Policing only. Sorry, we're doing policing only. Okay.
Last one here, last one.
Hold on, everyone. You call it, Steve. You get one draft pick.
Okay, what's that? All right, okay, good. Do that, and then Graham, and then we have the wrap.
All right.
We're living in an extraordinary era that is informed by phenomenal amounts of information. And the whole issue of encryption that John Miller and I had an op-ed piece that the New York Times was kind enough to put in this morning that I think makes our position very clear as it relates to the Apple issue. But on the larger encryption issue, that we're into a new frontier in many respects, that with a lot of unresolved issues around the security of devices, et cetera. But as we continue to go forward on that, we're going to continue to always be looking at it from the public safety perspective, trying to ensure to the best of our ability that we have access to information that's going to help us not only after the fact, but certainly before the fact, try to stop something from happening.
Last up, Graham. Graham.
Bob, did you hear that one?
I did. Well, first we'll start with the rape in the 1-to-1 precinct that happened on Forest Avenue. This individual we identified, this happened Friday night about 6 o'clock. They were closing down the location. He knocked on the door and said he was looking for work. The young lady let him in, where he went on to sexually assault her. He kept saying, "I will shoot you, I will shoot you." We had video. We pulled down Saturday morning from that. We put it out, and Special Victims worked all weekend on this. With the help of the 121 squad, they saw the video and they knew this male to be Maurice Scott, a 28-year-old male. He has 9 priors. So we arrested him this morning. He was picked out of the lineup, and he's been arrested for rape 1 as well as robbery. So that's where we stand with that case now. As far as the baby homicide, It is not a homicide yet. They're doing the autopsy as we speak now, but I will give you a scenario on it. The mother of the child dropped off the baby to a downstairs apartment for babysitting. She's used this woman 6 times in the past. The baby was then brought up Sunday at about 10 o'clock, not breathing. They was rushed to the hospital. There is some contusions on the baby's face. Again, the detectives have been working since Sunday night to find out exactly what happened with this. We put together a timeline. We found that the babysitter had taken the child with her boyfriend to Manhattan, and we're getting video there of exactly her whereabouts there. So we'll know more after the autopsy this morning. Again, the one lady we are looking at, she has 9 prior arrests, none of which for any kind of violence, but it's something that we have to go forward.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got radios?